Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new show. It's called Sikh Treasures, and it's going to take us through some journeys. And a couple of people have been on a fantastic journey recently, back in November 2017, on my wonderful guests this time around. And I've got Dr. Preet and Mr. Bhupinder Singh, Bhasin. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks.
Good to see you. Tell us a little bit about what was this motivation that you had to go to Pakistan. This is part of a yatra that takes place. What we want to discuss in this show is we want to talk about all the great things that you discovered, and we're going to do it over a series of episodes. But for this particular one, I'm really keen to explore what was the motivation and what did you initially discover?
So, in fact, Bhupinder came along with me in this journey because I'd been fascinated to listen to the stories of my grandparents, and my father told me a bit about partition time and what had happened. And I always felt this yearning to see what the hell is Pakistan all about. I mean, it's called Pakistan today.
I hear a lot of rumours about whether it's safe or not, and you know.
Yeah, well, that was all part. It wasn't exactly safe in our grandparents' time, at the time of partition, but it was that yearning to see what this homeland was actually about. And I knew that many parties were going to Pakistan all the time for yatra, so-called pilgrimage visits. So it was always in the back of my mind.
So do you think it's one of the, we were talking earlier on, do you think it was a kind of a bucket list thing that you wanted to do?
Exactly.
Yeah. Tick it off the list. There's a really depressing statement in it, bucket list. You're not going anywhere yet, okay?
Yeah, hopefully. My life has always been about goals.
Yeah.
And one of the goals, I've seen practically most of the world. One place which was a bit inaccessible was Pakistan, and it was something that was definitely on my agenda that I wanted to see. And Bhupinder was similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both sets of my grandparents that were all from what's now Pakistan, and partition. Actually, 2017 was the 70th anniversary of partition,
right? And
there was lots of things on TV, movies like Viceroy's House and other things that really sort of did motivate me to learn a bit more. Yes. Yeah. Well, talking about partition in particular. So it really did motivate me to try and find out a bit more. And then when my good old friend here said that he's thinking to go on this trip to Pakistan, and I didn't, without hesitating, I said, well, yes, I'd love to go too.
You went the week after Guru Nanak's birthday, right?
That's right, yes.
Okay.
So this was a group, a very small group. There's only 20 people that went on this group. Whereas during the Gurupurab, you have very, very large groups. For example, Punjab Radio organised one group of over 300 people.
Yeah. Do you have somebody that you know that went from here that organised it? You mentioned it to me. What's his name? Well,
this the organisation behind it was Nankana Sahib Foundation, who did the practical bookings of hotels and so on. But this was a small group that was organised by a chap called Chanchal Chaudhary of the Pothohar Brotherhood or the Pothohar community. Now it's actually interesting that Pothohar is an area of what's now in Pakistan, where both sets of our grandparents were from, and so it was actually helped us to learn a little bit about where they came from, and so helped us to learn a little bit about us.
About your heritage.
So this area, so around the Rawalpindi area, which is not that far from Amritsar, if you just go along west from there, this area was called Pothohar, and that's because they spoke a different type of Punjabi called Potwari, a bit of a softer sort of Punjabi, and the people emanated essentially from all the way down from Afghanistan, Peshawar side, all the way to the top end, and then we now approach the new border of India. So the Pothohar Brotherhood organised a trip to say, we're not only going to see the Gurdwaras, but we're actually going to discover the Pothohar region and the homeland. And that's why it was actually a double incentive for me.
So is that a really big area? I mean, what does it encompass now if you were to go there? I mean, obviously that's been, that country now, Pakistan, is like reformulated, it's got different states.
It's got the capital, without looking at a map, but obviously the capital of Pakistan, Islamabad, it's
Yeah.
that whole region,
Okay.
all the way down to practically Lahore, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a
Right.
huge area.
Mhm.
Jhelum River on one side, I think. I don't know the full.
And but you were
Except
saying
that
that you
in
were
the
saying about your. It was an interesting story, similar to me, isn't it? Like my mother born in Peshawar, my father born in Amritsar. Same with you as well,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So, but then I think your parents moved to Amritsar before, didn't they? They were originally
That's
from
right.
that area
Well,
and then they moved.
exactly, yeah. So, grandparents from my father's side were from a small place called Neela, which was close to Rawalpindi. And my mother's family was from Peshawar, which is right up near the frontier with Afghanistan. Peshawar is still home to a big Sikh community now, and has also acted as a place where a lot of Sikhs from Afghanistan have moved. Obviously, we've seen lots of Sikhs from Afghanistan come to the UK following the problems there, but there's lots of them have obviously gone to Peshawar as well, where they had some sort of roots as well. And so that is an area, unfortunately, we were not, our visa did not allow us to go to Peshawar for various security reasons, but it would have been interesting to go there as well, because there is a good Sikh community there.
So we determined that there was a motivation, there was a desire internally to go and discover more about your family, more about the heritage, more about what it probably was like, right? So you did a few things in terms of you followed the normal route, the gurdwaras that were planned out for you, but you also went off the beaten track and decided to hire a taxi and go to different places, go to some
Correct.
of your original places where your families actually lived, right?
Mhm.
What was the biggest kind of discovery on your part? Not putting the history aside, which we'll discuss that, later, but in terms of your personal journeys, were what was the aha moments that you had? Do you say, "Oh wow, I've seen this
The
house"?
biggest-
That's
The biggest aha, the first thing was the terrain. The terrain was nothing like I expected. I've been driven through the Punjab in India a million times, and you see these, great fertile fields of greenery everywhere. And actually, we did see some of that in Pakistan as well. But the terrain is more rocky and is mountainous. It's not huge mountains, but the huge mountains in the background, which is where you're talking about Himalayas. But this is the Eurasian plain. And the biggest thing about that terrain is how important that is to global history. So if you think about Buddhism and you think about the Greeks and you think about the Egyptians, you don't think about Pakistan. It's not the first thing that comes to your mind. But this is what we actually discovered, that the peoples, and we as Sikhs and all those generations down, we come from a very special bunch of people. These people were defending themselves against the Mongol invaders and all the different invaders coming from the Europe side, from the Russian side, and at the same time we've got the Chinese influence, because this Chinese Silk Route and all the traders and the Arabs and everything else. So it was very, very fascinating to understand that. The oldest university in the world is in a place called Taxila, and that's a Buddhist university, and it's actually 100 miles away from where my great-grandfather was born, even less.
Do they know that because they've got like artifacts or museums and things that you can go
Absolutely.
to, or are there people that are quite knowledgeable? I know you got a tour guide, but
Yeah.
was in
And
this
these
case
are- these are
was he
the-
quite
They're
knowledgeable?
World Heritage Sites.
Are they?
They are
Okay.
World Heritage,
UNESCO,
UNESCO
yes.
protected.
Yeah.
And actually, I think in this one valley called the Gandhara Valley, I think we've got a couple of pictures of it. In that one valley, they have discovered, and who discovered? The British. Since the British went, no one's doing any discovering.
Okay.
Right? There are 20 civilizations.
So
that
they
are
discovered it because they were doing archaeology, or they
yeah,
discovered
they're doing
okay, right.
archaeology. They were
Right,
doing archaeology. I mean, who would think that we've got Egyptian civilizations in Punjab?
So when you
This
go to a
is Punjab.
museum there,
Yeah.
is a museum, do they not have like a Pakistani university that looks into stuff and they're keeping the museum up to date, or Indian
Well, it was actually interesting.
archaeologists coming in to help.
The first point we went to was Taxila Museum, which is a very small building, clearly built by the British. But it was interesting that it was kept up. And while we were there was actually a Pakistani school group that had come to visit.
Yeah.
And actually other Pakistani visitors, tourists.
But also Chinese,
Yeah.
Taiwanese, all the people interested in Buddhism, and pre all these problems in Pakistan, that was the biggest source of funding
Right.
was all the actual Buddhists going there because
So the Buddhists actually giving money to maintain those locations.
yeah, well, the
Right.
tourism. I mean,
Right.
when we were there, we were in the Taxila University. There was huge parties of Chinese people going,
Yeah.
and they got fantastic statues, and they got very interesting. By the way, it's called Taxila because I told you early on this is a mountainous region.
Right.
It's a region where they have earthquakes very often. And Taxila actually describes the brick format, which was so clever. It's got one large brick, one small brick, and two tiny bricks. When there's an earthquake, it doesn't fall
Wow,
over.
amazing.
And this is
I
2000
was just
BC.
thinking the same thing when you said that. They were thinking about this all those years ago. Yeah,
2000 BC, 3000
Yeah.
BC, the heritage, and a little bit further where we didn't go actually goes. The oldest civilization in the world is in Harappa. That's about 6000 BC.
yeah. Wow.
So this is old stuff we're talking about.
Mm.
And this is where Guru Nanak was doing his preaching, and where the other gurus were there. This is that land, and it is truly amazing.
So you discovered also gurdwaras, and we were talking earlier on about the fact that some of the gurdwaras, quite small gurdwaras, but they're also points of historic reference as well, because certain things took place, certain
Well,
major historical parts of
literally on
Sikh.
the second day of our visit, we actually that's where we went. We went to Taxila first, which was on the way to Hassan Abdal. Hassan Abdal is, or Hassan Abdul is where Panja Sahib is, Gurdwara Panja Sahib, which is the very famous Gurdwara that was made famous by Guru Nanak, and you have the stone with a handprint at the Gurdwara, and so this is a really interesting story because when we looked up some history about that particular area, and that spring that gushes forth at that point, there's a lot of history of that spring going back thousands of years, not just hundreds of years, but thousands of years. That it was a famous spring, and so this is a place that Guru Nanak went to, and had the running in.
The story is that essentially, they weren't given water at that place, and then a rock was thrown as well, and Guru Nanak, I think the rock was thrown after he manifested water. I think from
Yes,
and essentially he stopped the rock with his hand. Now, whether as a scientist you're going to believe that or what the story is, that's irrelevant, because I tell you one thing. I can't tell you how emotionally moved I was to go to Panja Sahib. More than even, we saw the birthplace of Guru Nanak. This place was just spiritually amazing. Walked into the building, I felt a great sense of, I was overcome by energy. The place has something in it.
Right.
Mm.
Then when I started to reflect, so Bhupinder talks about this spring, and you see the handprint of Guru Nanak. We put our hands, everybody who can go there can take a dubki in that water and put their hands. And funny enough, at that particular point, there are loads of fishes and they're all hanging around the hand.
Right, really.
And for whatever the reason is, no one's feeding them there, they feed them in other parts. And you put your hand in there. Now, if Guru Nanak put his hand in there, that's amazing. But the thought of all of my ancestors putting their hand in that thing, and my grandmother, my grandfather, my great-grandfathers, is just so earth-moving that there's no other place that will ever be in the whole world where they've all been.
That's an interesting way of looking
And it's
at it.
actually so emotional to think about what that is. And we've got pictures, where the hand is literally, we're putting our hand in there. And the water is crystal clear. It is so clear, and it's so beautiful to see. And the fish are so beautiful to see as well.
Okay.
And it's warm. It's not cold.
It's not cold. Yeah.
I mean, we were going in a cold time of year, but still, it's not cold because it's coming from the earth. So I would say it's so disappointing for most Sardars not being able to visit Panja Sahib. It's just a great place. It's absolutely great.
So when you went to some of these places, right? So is there like a central place where you stay, or when you go to, we stick with the actual program rather than the separate program that you went on. Did you come back and stay in a hotel and then booked it all up?
In our case, because I think if we were going as part of a truly religious yatra, we might stay in the hotel, but the accommodation is variable, to say the least.
Okay. So is it actually in a hotel, or is it actually at the Gurdwara?
Oh no, our trip because we went there for a day trip and then back to Rawalpindi. Actually, at the Gurdwara there is a huge accommodation block. It really is quite hundreds of rooms are built there. But obviously we had gone at a time when there wasn't a particular good.
So the hundreds of rooms are there to accommodate people that come during religious
just
festivals.
Just like a Ramandir Sahib, same thing.
So at Punja Sahib, I mean, the famous time of year that people go there is actually Vaisakhi time, and so you've got, at Vaisakhi you would have lots of people coming to visit and actually staying there for a few days. But it does make you think. You've got this huge facility of all these accommodation rooms and so on, but they're not utilised apart from during those times. So it's and actually the local Sikh Sangat is very small. It could be just a handful of families that actually live in that area and look after, and then most of them are involved in looking after the Gurdwara, many as volunteers, and so that it just does make you think.
And the architecture of that Gurdwara is just magnificent inside. Some to the outside a bit less so. It could have, because it doesn't have the same level of sangat and maintenance that the other places do. But Maharaja Ranjit Singh decorated that with like millions of mirrors and stuff.
It's got kind of a shiny finish to it.
Yes, it's beautiful.
We are, as we're talking, we are going to put some pictures up so that.
It is absolutely fantastic. But the thing is, it is also what we can't tell you in a picture is how you feel
when you go, the emotion that you get,
and emotionally you feel a sense when you call it lost treasures. This is a treasure that is lost to the majority of Sikhs, and also we all tend to think of Pakistan very negatively, and that's totally understandable.
So I looked at some of your photos, and there are some security people there, right?
Yeah.
Are they there for? You made an interesting point. Are they to? Is there a protection thing going on here, or
no? As far as we were told, they're there to protect us.
Okay, all right.
And actually, whether that's any use or not, I can't tell you. But another point,
it's for our peace of mind.
But how did you feel when you met some of the people there? I mean, we are going to talk separately about when you did go to some of the villages, right? But when you met somebody who was there at the Gurdwara, maybe somebody might be actually doing seva there, or somebody's actually doing the Hukamnama there. When you met some of the people there, or even some of the people that were just visiting, was it a really nice atmosphere? Were people quite respectful to each other?
Absolutely, yeah. So, for example, it was one of the first few days of our trip going to Punja Sahib. And so straight away, one member of our group said to the Gyani there, we met the Gyani there, he said, "Can I take Hukamnama?" So he just went along and took Hukamnama, and then later on they started a little bit of Kirtan, and then another member of our group said, "I'd like to sing a Shabad." So she was able to sing a Shabad there.
Can you imagine going to somewhere like Harmandir Sahib where you can't even get 1 minute to do Ardas? These places, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about any second-rate Gurdwaras. We're talking about, these are just the most important, preeminent places, and we've completely lost them. And that's why they're desperate. In fact, if you can go there and you can participate.
So when you say lost, what do you mean by? Do you mean by lost the fact that we've lost the opportunity to visit them ad hoc, or lost because? The fact that we don't have control on it.
No, but I think people have forgot. They don't know. Who knows the story about who really? When you think about big gurdwaras these days, I don't think this generation ever would mention Punja Sahib. Yes, my grandmother would. My father might.
So it's a lost treasure, not only from a knowledge perspective, but also from an experiential perspective.
Correct, because the barriers to entry. I mean, I was talking to my sister-in-law the other day, and she was saying that. If you're in India, you can't even dream about getting a visa. It's such a lot of work. And then could she go to the United States after having an Indian passport with a Pakistani visa?
Right.
That was on her mind. So she said, it's all very well you say.
Yeah, people would worry about that, wouldn't they? Because if they do go to the US, they say, where have you been?
The funny thing is,
what are you doing over there?
I did go to the US very soon after that trip, but no problem whatsoever.
Okay.
They're not interested in flicking through your passport to see where you've been. Yes. But it is a thought that runs through your mind. Of course it is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Okay, so for us, it was relatively easy to get a visa. But like you were saying, if you're, for example, living in India, and I think you can only get a visa during Vaisakhi and Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurpurab.
So the rest of the time you just can't can't get over the border. Yeah?
Well,
It's tough.
I'm not sure
for
because
business,
I've not found out because I didn't have to.
But basically, it's not easy, right? So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be
Yes, it's
kind of
a
walk in and
rigmarole.
get it stamped.
Yeah,
You'd have to go
that's right.
through some process.
Yeah.
So this has been really interesting. Definitely, I'm quite kind of personally motivated to go myself.
Yeah.
To experience that aha, but also, like you said, the lost treasures are not only from a perspective of the experiential, and that's emotional too. But I suppose when you're there, you do learn a lot more as well.
Mhm.
It's like when you go on one of these trips, they give you so much information. I've been to Egypt, and then you come back and think I can just about remember all this stuff, unless you've got a guidebook or something. But if you're genuinely interested in the subject, they normally say that with the subject. If you're interested and it's topped up with even more knowledge, it kind of enhances it even more. It kind of means more to you, and you're likely to remember it more. Okay, so unfortunately, that's it for this particular episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Wonderful to meet Dr. Pri and Bhupinder, and we will return to this subject in the future. We will discuss together our experiences about Gurdwaras, and also, more importantly, we will do a show on actually going back to where your family were and how that felt, especially meeting people that actually knew some of your original people that used to live there, your family, etc. We look forward to seeing you next time. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.